Welcome to Podnutz Daily for December 12th, 2008, episode number 121. I talked yesterday about a gateway desktop that came in. A customer was having sound problems with it. Actually, hang on one sec. I have to get the numbers off of the screen here for those of you watching. There we go. Customer was having sound problems with his gateway. He thought his internal sound card was bad. He was using the sound build off of his motherboard. So he bought a sound card, put it in, didn't work. So I bought another sound card, put it in, didn't work. And at the same time, his Ethernet card wasn't working, so he bought another Ethernet card, and apparently the Ethernet card did work. And what it was basically, it all started happening once he got infected with spyware and viruses and this kind of thing. I think what he tried to do was go ahead and delete stuff, and he deleted vital system files. And what we found was he must have deleted so many things that we had a hard time rebuilding Windows, even doing a Windows repair, that we just did a reinstall. Now, his concern was he didn't have a recovery or Windows installation disk. So he's like, well, how are you going to install Windows? He's like, somebody gave me a Windows. By the way, it was a Windows Media Center edition. He was like, somebody had given me a Windows XP Professional disk, but he uses Media Center, so he didn't want to install XP Professional. And then if he installed the XP Professional disk, he'd have to install the drivers and this kind of thing. He just didn't want to get involved with that, so he brought it to us. So I didn't have any disks to work with. But the thing is, after we saw that Windows was going to just take too long to patch up Windows, I wanted to do a reinstall. Most computers now come with a system recovery partition built into the hard drive. You don't need disks anymore. On Gateway, it's either F10 or F11. I don't know which it was, but when you boot up the computer and you see the Gateway screen, you start hammering on F10 and F11. One of the two was one that worked. I don't know which one it was because I kept hitting both of them. And it starts up in the recovery partition, and you could do a destructive or non-destructive recovery. Non-destructive supposedly doesn't delete any of your files, even though I have seen that happen in cases. And destructive just wipes out the whole hard drive. So what I like to do is I never like to do a non-destructive because it never seems to work for me. Usually whatever's causing the problem with that computer, if you do non-destructive, it stays on that computer. If it's a virus or a file that has something messed up in it. I like to back up the information to a separate spot, external hard drive or separate place. Then just do a destructive recovery. I always have success with a destructive recovery because it just wipes out the hard drive clean and reinstalls the operating system. Well, once I did that, I did a system recovery. It recognized his internal sound card and it recognized his internal Ethernet card. So technically he didn't have to buy anything extra. He bought 2 sound cards he didn't need and an Ethernet card he didn't need. It was software related, was not hardware related. So when we did the system recovery, both of those things came back. Everything was fine. This was back when Gateway was putting out machines with Norton and McAfee on the same machine. It was ridiculous. The first thing I do after a system recovery is I take the Norton, I take the McAfee off the machine. It's old. It's like an older version anyway. This also had, I think, a spy program too. It was pretty ridiculous how much like gunk and junk it was on this machine. Cleaned it all up, went through add remove programs, just removed any junk, and then the system's good as new. We put AVG on it because he didn't want to buy Norton, so that's fine with me. Okay, the other computer I was working on yesterday was an Apple G4 laptop, an iBook, one of those white ones. And man, I've never opened up one of these before. It is very not fun to open these things if you don't have the right tool. First of all, you need the thing that's called the splooger. And the splooger is a little plastic wedgy thing, and it's a little wedge. It's a stick. And it allows you to open up cases without damaging the plastic. Because I started doing it with a metal screwdriver, and you have to pry the case, the lower case, off of this thing to get it off. Literally, like pry. And if you use a flathead screwdriver, you're going to mar the case. So finally I ended up using a plastic ruler I had because I couldn't find the splooger. I have a splooger somewhere. I couldn't find it. So I used a plastic ruler, and that worked okay. But the plastic on the plastic will be okay. You don't want to take anything metal. It would have definitely damaged the case or broke something. And you have to really pry. You got to get that ruler in there or the splooger in there and pry that thing apart. There's great tutorials online. I just put disassemble iBook laptop, and there's some couple great tutorials on how to do it, so you're sure you're not doing anything wrong. Because if you don't read anything on how to do it, you just start trying to do it by yourself, you will definitely think you're going to break something. It doesn't seem like the case should come out the way it does, but apparently it does. It reminds me a little of the Mac Mini, how you get the bottom off of a Mac Mini. You have to take, like, what are those things called? Like spackling knives, like wedged knives, and 2 of them, and pry that thing out of there. It's really, some of these apples are really a pain to take apart. But once you get them apart, you have to admire the workmanship and the care that goes into placing all the parts inside the computer in a way that's very efficient. I love looking inside apples. I'm not a big fan always of taking them apart, but once they're open, I really enjoy seeing how they're put together. Okay. Had another Inspiron, Dell Inspiron laptop, 1525, I think it was, fairly new one. And when we booted up the system, it would say no bootable devices found. I had a similar problem with a similar laptop, and it turned out to be the motherboard. The person had dropped it, and it caused the SATA control on the motherboard to act all funny, and it couldn't recognize the hard drive. I thought it was the same problem with this one. And as it turns out, it wasn't the motherboard, it was the hard drive that was bad. I still think that this customer dropped this machine because the hinges on the screen were like popped off. But regardless, once I took that hard drive out and I put another hard drive in, the system did run. So I know it was the hard drive. Another way you can test to see if the hard drive is bad is, actually what I did is I ran the BART PE disk. You could run Knoppix Live CD, or you could run Ultimate Boot CD, or you could run the BART PE. I really like BART PE because it boots up about 100 times faster than the Ultimate Boot CD. And what you can do in BART PE is it's basically a Windows shell, and you can move files and check things out and see if drives are working and this kind of thing, just from booting from the BART to the BART PE disk. Now, I do this to test hard drives because if I put the BART PE disk or a Knoppix disk in or anything like that, and the system runs perfectly, then I know it's the hard drive that's the problem. Because the only thing that's not in the equation when you're running off of a live bootable CD is the hard drive. You took the hard drive out of the equation. So if the system runs great like that, once you put the hard drive back in, you know if there's a problem. Now, it could be a Windows error on the hard drive, but I'm talking about if you think the hard drive is physically damaged or something's physically wrong with the hard drive. What else did we do with this thing? Yeah, in this particular hard drive, to test it, I took it out. I hooked it up to a USB to SATA connector, and I hooked it up to one of my machines. I always put the drive up to my ear, and I listened to what the drive is doing, and it was making all kinds of buzzing and non-normal noises. So the drive was definitely fried. So that's why I was getting the error, no bootable devices found. And a replacement hard drive will solve that problem, and that's what the customer's going to do. So I scared them actually originally off the bat by telling them it was the motherboard. And so I guess I delivered them good news when I said it was a hard drive. One thing that really got me going angry